Okay, let's start from the beginning now. Let's try to see what computers are able to do. It is important to know what computers do, to know what we developers do in order to teach the computer to do something, in order to understand something very important here, what computers are good at and what computers are bad at. So with this information we will better understand why we are trying to create what we call artificial intelligence. So computers, and when I talk about computers, I'm talking about mobiles, smartwatches, any kind of device, okay? What they really do, okay? So are you familiar with programming? Maybe if you are from the ICT sector, you know about programming, but if you come from health or social care sectors, it's unlikely that you know about programming. Don't worry, I'm going just to make a little introduction, just to let you know some of the very basic ideas about what computers are able to do, what a program is, okay? So how do we teach computers to do something? Okay, when you are executing a program, what is the collection of instructions and how we describe or provide this collection of instructions? Okay, is it really hard to create a program? Yes, it is. You're going to see that's the case. What computers are good at? Okay. And you're going to see that there are many problems, of course, where computers are, well, more than necessary. Okay, they are very good in a lot of activities. But we are going to see that computers are bad at some specific areas where we, human beings, for example, we are much, much better. So the most important thing about a computer happens in what you have in the image, okay? The CPU, we call it the central processing unit, okay? So we can define it as the computer's brain, okay? So there's a clear analogy between the CPU and our own brain, okay? Of course, as we need extra parts as human beings to survive and interact, okay, the CPU cannot work alone. So it needs the access to other electronic components, such as memory, in order to store information, input-output devices, like the screen, keyboards, and so on, and other components, okay? The thing is, do CPUs understand our natural language? Can we be in front of a computer and explain to the computer using English, for example, what we want to do? Okay? Well, no, this is not the case. And without this explanation, the computer is not able to do anything. Computers are very silly. They are unable to do anything if we don't provide to the computer the instructions of whatever we want the computer to do. And unfortunately, we cannot do that using natural language. At least, this is not the situation right now, yet. So we cannot teach computers to do anything without learning their native language. So we need to understand the language of this CPU in order to be able to teach the CPU to do something. The thing is that the CPUs, okay, only understand what we call machine language, okay? This language depends on the company that produces the CPU, okay? It allows us, programmers, okay, to do very basic things, believe me, okay, in a very low level instructions, okay? That we have even to codify in binary code, okay? So what kind of things this CPU is really able to understand and do? Well, basic arithmetic operations, to store and load information from the memory, basic input-output communication with peripherals, compare values, loops, what we call loops, repetition of collections of instructions while a specific condition is true or false, okay? So the kind of instructions the CPU is able to understand and execute is very basic, very low level, very limited. So it is very hard, okay, to use this machine language for programming anything, okay? So this is the reason, because we don't use this machine language in general, okay? Because it's very low level, okay? So what we do normally, okay, is to use what we call the high-level programming languages, okay? So what are these high-level programming languages? Well, they are less complex, okay, than machine language, and somehow they are close, okay, to those with some mathematical background, okay? So it's a language that if you have some very basic knowledge of maths and logic, okay, you can, during a long period of training sometimes, you are able to explain to the computers using these languages what to do to create programs, okay? So these high-level programming programs using another program are finally translated into machine language, which is the only thing the CPU is able to understand, okay? So we use these high-level programming languages. Although they are simpler, okay, they still are far from anyone not previously trained on programming and their challenges, okay? So the thing is that we, the developers, we have to explain with no ambiguity at all and with high precision, okay, every specific action the computer must do in front of a task and the user interaction, okay? Any little mistake in a program can generate crashes or non-responsive programs, okay? So in practice, it takes several years to become a good programmer. Believe me, it's not easy, even using these high-level programming languages, okay? Just as an example, okay, Microsoft Office, for example, has more than 30 million of lines of code, okay? And it is the result of the work of many people, hundreds, okay, during many years, okay? So you can get an idea that to explain to the computer what an application has to do, to program an application, is something really difficult. It takes time. So any little mistake, okay, in these 30 million lines of code, and for example, Word doesn't do what you expect, or even can crash, okay? So it's really hard, okay? Programming, it's really hard. So what computers and devices are good at, okay? Well, our society, as a matter of fact, is not able to work without computers and programs currently, okay? There's no way back, okay? So we use computers almost for everything, as you know, okay? So our society needs the use of computers for almost everything. So computers are unique in processing and analyzing huge data volumes, okay? Carry out very complex calculations, store huge volume of data, not only textual data, but also images, videos, sounds, etc. And of course, they are very good letting us to get access to this information, okay? As you know, they are also giving us new interaction mechanisms and better tools for people interaction and work assistance. Okay, so we use computers almost for everything, as you know. Okay, what computers and general devices are bad at, okay? Where we have problems, okay, in order to use computers? Well, with what we call high human level cognitive skills, okay? Such as, for example, adaptability to new problems, situations, and issues. If I create a program, this program is able to solve a specific problem. And in front of another problem, I need another program. So the programs are not really flexible in order to adapt to new situations, okay? Computers are bad also in perceptual interpretation, okay? So to interpret images, okay, what we can find in images in our environment, sound, videos, they are not very good at that. A 3-year-old child is much better in order to interpret what is happening in his or her environment than a computer, okay? Intuition, autonomy, okay? When these are essential things to solve, we have problems when we try to get this intuition and autonomy in a computer. Complex decisions, okay, or on especially high fuzzy and uncertainty context, okay? Because ambiguity and new situations are problematic. Because if the computer has no specific instruction in front of a new specific situation, the computer doesn't know what to do, okay? And in these areas, of course, we human beings, we are much better. Okay, so they are still far from our human cognitive skills. Yes. But are they improving? Absolutely, okay? So we are working, of course, trying to achieve that the computers could be able to acquire the same cognitive skills we have as human beings, okay? So many researchers and professionals are working really hard on this in what we call artificial intelligence. So somehow I'm introducing artificial intelligence as the area in which we try to solve problems where we human beings are much better, okay? So now we know more or less what computers are able to do. We know that we have to explain them using a program, instruction after instruction, everything the computer has to do, okay? And that allows the computer to do very interesting things, but makes the computer not very good at some cognitive skills we use every day as human beings. So this is why we introduced the concept of artificial intelligence, a concept we are going to go deeper in the next videos.